I think that a lot of people still, of course, in the investment world, they see Bitcoin as a risk-on asset. And I think that 50 years from now, that's going to be absolutely laughable. The Bitcoiners that work in his administration are passing legislation right now that is super bullish. I mean, everything that's coming out, the SEC is dropping cases left and right. And it's been said many times that nobody really understands Bitcoin fully, because nothing like this has ever existed before, and it's unfolding in real time. When you have two floating currencies in a free market, it just doesn't really make sense. And what Bitcoin is going to do is it's going to destroy the bond market. Now there's a proposal to back bonds with Bitcoin, so that could temporarily build a bridge. My preference would be a gradual, peaceful, non-volatile transition between Bitcoin and fiat. Given what's happened over the last 15 and what's happened over the last 2 years, I don't think it's unrealistic to say that we won't have any fiat currencies in 10 years.
The last time we went into so many interesting topics, and I think one of the things were also the sentence that I saw in the intro when I rewatched it, and there's something that stuck with me. You said we're living in a historic moment, and I think you said Bitcoin is right now the most important thing that's going on. So this was about a year ago or half a year ago, something like that. How has this changed in 2025, if at all, or did it even get more important now in the current times we live in?
So there was a long period in my Bitcoin journey where I was worried that the government was going to ban it. Like right up until the election in the US, I was worried about a sort of authoritarian communist future. And now with Trump in office, I have other concerns. You know, I don't trust politicians no matter who they are, but the Bitcoiners that work in his administration are passing legislation right now that is super bullish. I mean, everything that's coming out, the SEC is dropping cases left and right, not just like all across the crypto sphere, which is going to let off a lot of scammers, but this is what Republicans do. They deregulate to their advantage, you know? And so Bitcoin is weaving its way into the system. And I think that most people aren't paying attention at all. Like 99% of people aren't paying attention to what's happening. I think a lot of Bitcoiners included don't fully see the scope of what's unfolding right now. Like it seems on online, a lot of guys get caught up in little short-term stuff without zooming out to look at the whole picture of what's actually unfolded over the last 5-10 years. And looking at the difference today in adoption versus 5 years ago even is insane. Just recently, there was a paper published it's looking like, and I'm not a lawyer, I can't interpret these documents, but it's looking like it's going to allow Lightning node runners to remain private and to not need licensing, which was one of the last things I was worried about. It was like one of the last little pieces of, oh, this is where they catch us, is by tracking all the transactions. And it seems like Bitcoiners have woven their way into the system enough that we're just getting everything we want. Like everything that the political apparatus can do to stop us is getting brushed aside right now, which is amazing, you know, and simultaneously the price is falling, which is like unbelievable to me, you know?
Yeah, it's like less risk and less uncertainty and more Satoshis for your dollars.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think that a lot of people still, of course, in the investment world, they see Bitcoin as a risk-on asset. And I think that 50 years from now, that's going to be absolutely laughable, you know? But that's how it was when gold was, well, not gold, I can't go that far back, but when oil was being adopted initially around the turn of the century, oil was seen as a very speculative investment. And a lot of the responsible business people weren't touching it because it was too volatile. And that's what Bitcoin is today, I think.
Yeah, like the volatility is something I'm always astonished how many people bring up volatility as an argument why they aren't into Bitcoin. It's just a natural thing for something that is right at the beginning and has such a huge vision that it will be volatile while it's getting adopted. That's the logical thing. It would be almost a red flag if Bitcoin price would go up like that. Like that would almost be unnatural. That I would ask myself, like, what's going on? Like, who's manipulating the price? If it's volatile, that's normal. If it would be very smooth, I would be like asking questions: who's behind the Bitcoin price?
Right. Yeah. I think that the whole concern about volatility is a time preference issue, right? It's people that are too zoomed in on their chart and they're not thinking about what they're going to be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And that's what Bitcoin did to me. I wasn't thinking 20 years out in my life. I am now, you know. And there's other people also that say that the Bitcoin volatility is not a Bitcoin issue. It's capturing the volatility of the fiat system. And we're actually able to see it on a ledger that's more truthful than anything that we have in the fiat system, which is a very radical understanding of Bitcoin. And I think it's like really far ahead of where most other people are. But I think there's truth to it. And we're probably going to see that unfold over the next 10 years. We're going to see that kind of become more and more apparent as more people understand it.
Are we now basically officially, because there's like those phases in Bitcoin, first they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then the phase is like they are joining you. Is that now the official state entering of governments are joining us? Even like China seems to be coming closer and closer to Bitcoin.
I think it's going to happen in different waves in different places, you know, and I think that a lot of the people, probably even the people who are writing these bills, well, maybe not the people writing them, but the people that are passing these bills that are pro Bitcoin, they don't fully understand the gravity of what they're engaging in. They can't understand it, right? Because I've been researching this for like 10 years and I still don't understand it. And it's been said many times that nobody really understands Bitcoin fully because nothing like this has ever existed before and it's unfolding in real time. And so these people that they're thinking about how it's going to benefit them today or this week or this quarter or during this election cycle. And for sure it can and it will, but they're probably not understanding the implications of what it's going to do to the government over the next 100 years, right? And that's why it's kind of a perfect digital Trojan horse.
You also said at the beginning, and I'm really curious about that, you said that we are too zoomed in, people are too zoomed in. I think you said even Bitcoiners are sometimes a little bit too zoomed in. What do you mean by what's going on and what's unfolding? So what's the bigger picture here?
Yeah, so everything is hypothetical at this point, right? Is the Bitcoin standard going to reduce the size of governments? I think I mentioned that on the last conversation we had. That's hypothetical. It will remove the power for them to manipulate the currency, which is going to take away a godlike power from the government, basically, for them to create value out of nothing. However, simultaneously, we have a lot of automation surfacing. So that can provide the government with the ability to sustain itself for a lot longer. And so when I talk about what's unfolding, it's the destruction of fiat. There's no two ways about it. And I know that Seyr knows this. It doesn't matter what he says in public. I know that he knows that the dollar and Bitcoin can't coexist. He's playing a smart game, I think. I don't agree with everything that he says. But that's what's unfolding is fiat currencies are about to get exposed for what they are, which is lies. Basically, it's a tremendous scam. And people look at Bitcoin and they say, "Oh, that's a Ponzi scheme. That's a scam." Yeah, sure. I mean, if Bitcoin is a scam, then every commodity on the planet is a scam, right? Then all trade is a scam. It's just it's a relative spectrum of what you're talking about, and most people don't realize what fiat is at its core. So I think that's what it is. It's an awakening to a lie that's been going on for a very long time.
Do you think the people in the government that are now pushing more and more for Bitcoin get that Bitcoin is challenging the US dollar?
It's a spectrum, right? I don't think Trump understands it, right? I listened to him in Nashville in November, whenever that was, and he rambled on for an hour and a half or something after making us wait for 2 hours because apparently Elon's jet was flying overhead. The whole thing is just like so comedic. And then this guy Jordy and like all this stuff that was going on. Trump gets people excited about what they're excited about. So he just talked around until he found something that people cheered for, and then he said that more. But he clearly didn't understand Bitcoin, right? And he didn't read off of a speech. RFK did read off of a speech that a Bitcoiner wrote. It was clear. But I don't think these politicians understand it. I don't think they really care about it. I think that they care about their short-term self-interest, which is perfect Austrian theory, right? It's like everybody's a selfish actor, and it just so happens that their selfish actions align with Bitcoin being adopted in every possible way. And there are real Bitcoiners behind the scenes working for these guys that are weaving in a lot of, I think, governmental subversion, right? It's eventually, if this keeps going the way it's going, the government isn't going to have anything to do. Like, what are they going to be responsible for? Besides protecting the border, that's basically it. So I don't know. Let's see.
That's super interesting. What is the government responsibility if they cannot print money, so they have to ask for money from the citizens, and there has to be consensus? I guess protecting the border might be a consensus, maybe some minimal security, healthcare for everyone. I don't know, like where people find consensus, but it's a really interesting question. It's actually a question that I have since the first episode, and I'm still not 100% in an answer what Bitcoin will do to our society and how we will function if there's just Bitcoin. There's no other fiat currency. And there's a lot of debate, as you said before, there's even a lot of debate going on in Bitcoin if we ever get there, if we have a Bitcoin standard without any fiat currencies, or we have a Bitcoin standard where fiat currencies are backed by Bitcoin and some stuff like that.
Yeah, every time somebody tries to explain that to me, I don't understand it. Like, how do you back something that's floating? It's like backing silver with gold. Like, how are you going to do that? When you have two floating currencies in a free market, it just doesn't really make sense. And what Bitcoin is going to do is it's going to destroy the bond market. So now there's a proposal to back bonds with Bitcoin, so that could temporarily build a bridge. My preference would be a gradual, peaceful, non-volatile transition between Bitcoin and fiat. The way things that are going right now, that seems fully possible. Is it going to stay that way? I'm not sure. I think there's a herd mentality in humans where when they reach a certain tipping point and there's enough people in on something, it causes a stampede. It's just there's enough people paying attention to something. There's a certain critical pivot. I don't know where that is. It's not really clear. I lived through the time when the internet was just starting, so I got to watch that, and I got to watch smartphones get adopted, and now I got to watch Uber and driverless cars and all these things. I live in a place where there's cars driving around with no people in them already. How long is it going to take for that to wipe out all the Uber drivers, right? There's a certain level of comfort. You have to be able to trust the technology to get in that car and let it drive you somewhere. It's the same thing with Bitcoin. It's like you're going to put your money into this thing. You don't know if it's going to exist tomorrow. You don't know if it's going to crash. That uncertainty is going away really quickly. But most people need the big financial players to get in first before they feel safe, which is a huge disadvantage to them. But it is what it is. It's just human psychology. So
it's also interesting, this cycle. I talked with Danny and a lot of other people especially on that topic with Danny from Coin Corner. And he basically said a bull market hasn't even started if we just look at retail. When he sees from Coin Corner, they are having now, I think, like 11 years of data. He says like, retail isn't that interested in this bull cycle, and it's mostly driven by institutional and bigger and deeper money pockets. Retail kind of did not start, and then I looked at Google Trends. It's kind of confirming that bias, where we are at, what was it, 7 or 8% of the Google search volumes we had 2017, and it was, I think, like 20 or 15% of where we were at 2021. So we are down a lot when you search for buy Bitcoin or something like that. And it's interesting how institutions and corporations and companies are now getting more and more interested in this. Talk is getting more and more kind of popular. How do you look at this?
Yeah, the mainstream adoption, frankly, was a little scary to me at the speed it was happening. I was there was a lot of fear in the Bitcoin space. I could feel it online. People listening to Whitney Webb, who, I respect Whitney a lot. She's done great research. She doesn't understand Bitcoin yet. So she doesn't understand the adversarial dynamics of game theory as it applies to Bitcoin. But when I see the level of mainstream adoption, I remember in, 2015 or something, Bitcoin was mentioned on TV once, and like everybody went crazy on Twitter. Oh my God, it was, somebody said Bitcoin on TV. And now it's being said on most channels once a day. And it just seems like we've gotten used to it. And that's what I mean about zooming out. I don't know. It's a time preference issue. It's like, I just can... seeing the forest through the trees, the expression, right? So like, if you look at just daily events of like, oh, I'm upset about the tariffs, or I'm upset about this and that. It's like, yo, look, like, think about what Bitcoin did in your life, and then look at how many people are talking about it now, and what it's going to do in all of their lives, and what it's going to do to the government and all these corporations that are holding on to it. It's unfathomable. I don't know what society is going to look like in 20 years as a result of this.
Yeah, it's also, as you said, I still don't understand the people that say the US dollar will be better because of Bitcoin and stronger because maybe medium term of like when USA is adopting Bitcoin faster than any other nation, and they have a lot of purchasing power, and they can put Bitcoin on their reserves, which makes government or the central banks stronger, and therefore also US dollar. Maybe also with this Tether and stable coin things, that might also be a thing.
Yeah. I'm glad you asked that, actually, because I had a recent realization around this. I think there are a lot of Bitcoiners that have known this for a very long time. They don't always talk about it because there's a subset of Bitcoiners that just, as soon as you mention any other cryptocurrency, they go haywire. And I understand that because they're all scams. Like I'm not, there's no two ways about it. Tron is the main thing that's running Tether, and that's a scam. So it is what it is. But I do see a scenario where the dollar gets way stronger temporarily. And that is basically, now Tether is becoming like a second Federal Reserve. It's like a more private digital version of the Federal Reserve that's not on US soil, which I could see from a Whitney Webb standpoint why that's very concerning. And Lola Leitz pointed out to me that, what's his name? The EOS guy, he had connections with Epstein, and he was involved in the founding of Tether. So there's definitely some mystery there. I'm not saying it's good, right? I'm just saying this is what's unfolding. The Tether organization is becoming a second Federal Reserve, which could be at least a partial solution to the Triffin's dilemma. Are you familiar with the Triffin's dilemma?
We actually had it last episode on a little bit, but I think it's something that we should definitely get more often, because I heard it yesterday the first time.
Okay, I should just mention it for anybody that doesn't know. So the Triffin's dilemma is basically the issue that when you're the global reserve currency, you need to constantly be exporting your currency in order to feed the global economy. And as a result, what ends up happening is all your manufacturing leaves and you become a net importer. And that can lead to collapse. And that's kind of what Trump seems to be trying to reverse right now. So anyway, with Tether, you can feed the desire for dollars globally in a way that doesn't inflate dollars at home. And that's probably going to end up destroying one currency after another all over the planet, and the whole world is going to dollarize. So Europe is in the planning phase to launch a CBDC in October, which is very soon, which is crazy. I don't think people want CBDCs. So there's a couple different ways they can do it. They can force people to take the CBDC through welfare. They can create a situation where it's like, all right, if you want your benefits, or we'll give you a UBI, but you have to scan your eyeballs and like let us track everything. They can do that, and they might try. Is the government competent enough to pull that off? Probably not, right?
I would bet against that, yeah.
I would bet against that as well. And I think that a lot of people inside Europe are very tech savvy, and they're probably willing to run open source technology, and they would probably prefer to hold Tether dollars over some government CBDC. And then the really smart ones are going to buy Bitcoin, and eventually it's all going to end up in Bitcoin. But a lot of other countries that are less developed are already adopting Tether as a means of exchange. And so that makes their local currencies obsolete basically overnight, which would strengthen the dollar. It would give us more purchasing power. We'd be able to import more. So there's this huge thing unfolding, which is a little scary, right? From a surveillance standpoint. I don't necessarily trust Tether, but the CEO is a real Bitcoiner. And he's stacking Bitcoin simultaneously. And they're also now making more money than BlackRock. So I don't think there's anything stopping this. It's just happening.
Yeah, I think they have, I've looked it up recently. I think they have 100K Bitcoin or something like that. They have quite a good amount of stack, so, which is great to see. But is that's all just short term, like, or medium term? Tether and those things, they don't have a future in a Bitcoin world.
No, but it doesn't. I mean, medium term is a little relative. I don't know what that time frame looks like. Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? Is it 15 years? I don't think so, frankly. I think that we can say probably 10 years away from that whole system being obsolete. I mean, that's a little extreme, but just given what's happened over the last 15 and what's happened over the last 2 years, I don't think it's unrealistic to say that we won't have any fiat currencies in 10 years.
Oh, wow.
but that's probably too much to say that, but it's going to be a good soundbite for your intro. What was I going to say? So I lost it.
No worries. It's super interesting when we look at the play, and it's really interesting because I had people on. I think the most extreme was Lau, who came on the show and said that he sees the US dollar not surviving 3 years. Nice. And this was I think this was like 1 year ago. So let's see how it goes the next 2 years.
I said something very similar actually to somebody, my buddy in Germany, and he said, "What's your time frame on fiat dying?" And I said 2 years, and that was last year. So maybe Lau and I are on the same estimation time frame. But a lot of Bitcoiners have been saying that for a long time, and I think many of us have underestimated the cleverness and the strength of the fiat system, and also how absolutely asleep most people are, mostly due to stress and debt, which is caused by the fiat system. So it's like a self-perpetuating unconsciousness machine.
It's almost like they have such a strong network effect, and it's like a mind trap that if you're in this fiat system and you look everything through this fiat system, it's really hard to imagine that not being around, because your frame of mind is right there. Right, and right. I needed 3 years. I needed to get out of the thinking that Bitcoin is a scam. Then I needed 1 year to where I first bought Bitcoin. Then I need 1 year to get really aggressively in Bitcoin, and then I need another 2 years to really think, oh, like Bitcoin is actually the solution. I was all in Bitcoin. I still thought that fiat will be our currency, and Bitcoin just a savings device. And I needed another 2 years to break that fiat mind frame. So the network effect and the mind trap is so strong. That's why I would wish it would go in like 2 years, but I don't know if I don't see it because the network effect of it is so strong.
Yeah, I honestly I don't really wish that it would take you 2 years, because that transition would be so volatile for so many people that it would cause a lot of harm. Actually, I'd probably prefer that it's more gradual. But just looking at the way technology is adopted, I don't know. It's the thing is that hyper Bitcoinization happens for each individual. It doesn't. Eventually, it'll happen for society, but once you kind of cross the threshold yourself, the world looks different, and then it actually becomes hard to make estimations about timing and all this stuff, which is fine. I don't have any desire to look back, but I've noticed that a lot of Bitcoiners can say things like, "Oh yeah, fiat's going to be gone in 2 years," and that it clearly hasn't panned out. Seyfedin has expected fiat to go down for a long time. He thought that adoption was going to happen faster. He was also really pushing the stock to flow model, which has not panned out very well. I think personally the stock to flow model is going to be broken to the upside at some point, and it's just going to get smashed. But it hasn't been an effective way of predicting the price, that's for sure.
Yeah, all those price models. I don't like price models. It's interesting, and it might give people some guidance of like where the potential might go. But at the end of the day, you're like, okay, I think it's you either come to the conclusion that Bitcoin is the best asset and the most important thing that's going on currently, or you don't. And if you come to that conclusion that it is the most important thing, what would you sell it for? What would you trade it for? What would you do it without it? So that if you're anyways very aggressively in that asset, why do you care where where it's going? Kind of.
Yeah, I tend to think not in terms of the dollar price, but more in terms of purchasing power. You know, it's like what can I actually buy with my Bitcoin? And right now, there's a lot of products coming out where you can take out loans against Bitcoin, which is going to accelerate the speculative attack. And finally, so the shitcoiners have had access to near infinite capital for a very long time. It's like the only ceiling on their capital was the degree to which they could scam their customers. And now that's starting to fall apart because basically they can only scam retail. Nobody's buying the Ethereum ETF, which is hilarious. Ethereum's going to zero against Bitcoin, finally. And Bitcoiners are now reaching a point where they can take out fiat using Bitcoin as collateral, which is going to give them a dramatically more finances to work with without selling their Bitcoin. So I think the tables are really turning hard, and we're not going to see the results of that for a few more years, I guess. But I'm seeing it in my own life, so it's definitely happened for other people.
Awesome. It's great to see the adoption happening. One thing that I was wondering, I don't know if we talked last time about privacy, because you show up with your real face, and there are a lot of I think like I had 5 to 10 guests already on that were completely anonymous, like no real face, no real name. So you are doing the face, yes, but not the name. Has privacy and being anonymous getting more and more unimportant as Bitcoin is getting more and more accepted by the mainstream? Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, it's been a journey for me personally, because I default to privacy, but there's something about being seen and making connections with people face to face and shaking people's hands and like really knowing them that I think is super important in the Bitcoin network. we're not just a bunch of people that live on islands with guns. It's like, that's not a future, you know? And so I realized eventually I was gonna have to talk to people in person about this, and also I orange pill people everywhere I go. So it's been a gradual step by step. I actually started out writing articles under my name, so it's not that hard to find out who I am. But I use Sourcenode because in the U.S. we don't have protections against privacy. So like if you had my full name, you could actually look up the properties that I own. You could look up my phone number. You could look up all these things. So that's right now I'm using this pseudonym. I probably won't use it forever. The other reason that I started using it is because one of the first articles I wrote was about psychedelics and Bitcoin. And it was obvious to me at the time what I was doing was subverting the power structure that exists on this planet. That was my goal. That was my whole intention behind writing that. And I thought that was going to be obvious to other people as well, but it's apparently not. And while Bitcoin is becoming adopted in the mainstream, that makes me that I feel a lot safer, obviously. And then also, it seems like there's a lot of discussion around the positive benefits of psychedelics as well. And so it seems like many of my concerns, and this is a general theme in my life, many of my concerns and paranoias about whatever, entity or group might be opposing me were unfounded. And they were just, I saw this sign on a church one time. It said, "Fear is a liar." They put it on these plastic letters on the church board in the front. It said, "Fear is a liar." And I was like, oh man, that's so good. I think about that every day. It's true. Every time you get scared of something, it's usually turns out to be blown out of proportion. That's speaking from a position of having a pretty good life, right? I don't have drones flying overhead where I live, but that's been my experience.
Yeah, and even if staying anonymous is like a fair choice, and there's a lot of things that you can do with that. But obviously, I do like because I actually thought about it when starting this journey intentionally of which route I should go. And it's awesome to connect with people, and people see you and people actually recognize you, and then you can connect them. If I would be just an avatar and they don't know how I look or how what's my name in real life, when I go around conferences, they wouldn't see me, and then we wouldn't have had those meeting points and those conversations, which are really that's the main reason why I go to conferences, to meet people that I otherwise wouldn't meet. And this is there's a lot of value in that, and I choose not to let fear drive my decisions.
Right. Yeah. At the same time, I totally understand why people want to be anonymous, and I respect it, and I admire the ability to do that if that's their trade-off, right? So everybody makes a personal calculation about their privacy, and I think everybody should have the right to have that privacy and have the technology to have that privacy. I do really worry about, KYC on Bitcoin and on websites like X. The big surveillance panopticon of big tech is a continuous problem. It's not something that Bitcoin is going to fix on its own, in my opinion, and that's why I use Nostr.
Do you solely use Nostr now?
Yeah, I deleted my X before it was called X, so I never had an X account. I was on Twitter, and as soon as I started using Nostr, I was like, oh, this is the thing I've been waiting for the last 15, 20 years of using centralized social media. I always felt weird about it. And yeah, Nostr is still clunky. It doesn't work perfect. So there's problems. But to me, it's the forefront of where this movement is going. If you actually care about freedom, and it's not just about number go up, and it's not just about clout, then I think that Nostr is the next logical step. And maybe that particular technology doesn't end up working, but we need some way of open source distributed system of communication. Like, we need that for our freedom,
Yeah, it's almost like with Bitcoin. Even if Bitcoin would fail, which I give a 0.001% chance, even in that case, I would still say, let's build the next one because this idea is so good. Just because the technology failed, we need it anyways. And the same with Nostr. If Nostr for some reason doesn't work, doesn't scale, doesn't whatever the technical problem would be, an open source communication layer, a social graph, whatever you want to call it, we need that.
Yeah.
As a creator,
Yeah.
I upload this episode on 5 different platforms.
Wow.
that shouldn't be the case.
Right.
You should
Right.
upload it
Yeah.
once, and it should be everywhere, and it should be. And also, I had a massive moment with Nostr where I saw in my fountain, which is connected to my Nostr, and I replied to a comment there. And then I opened Primal, which is also connected with my same Nostr, and I could engage in the same conversation there. And I was blown away because when you have, for example, a comment under your YouTube video and you reply to that, you don't see that on Twitter.
Right.
And that would be awesome to have things that I post on YouTube are also automatically on Twitter, and they're also connected with Facebook, and on WhatsApp I also see it, and everything is interconnected with an open source protocol. I don't want that on a centralized platform because then this platform has too much control. So it needs to be connected, open source, and not controlled centrally, which basically is Nostr.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's why I love it. And there's so many little advantages. The main disadvantage right now, I think, is the network effect, which is fine. I don't need to talk to everybody. In fact, I don't want to talk to most people. It's like I'm talking to Bitcoiners on Nostr. That's like it's like a giant group chat of people that care about similar things that I do, and we still disagree on a lot of things. Right? People talk about it being an echo chamber, but man, we have disagreements all the time, and I learn stuff, which I prefer to learn from people that I respect that have similar values, to myself. But yeah, I don't want to live in a WeChat world, And recently there was an interview with Elon. I don't know which podcast he was on, but he said he wants X to become 50% of the global financial system. He said that is one of his goals. And if you've tracked the history of Elon, when he says stuff like that, he accomplishes it. He will, I don't know what his plan is or who he's hiring to do whatever, but these are not idle comments. And I don't want to be part of that world. I don't want to have to trust a big tech corporation or some guy that I don't know with all my data.
Let's take a break for a moment and appreciate the beauty that Coin Vigilante has made with the Bitcoin watches. Those watches are the most amazing, the most elegant way of showing that you are a true Bitcoiner. And Coin Vigilante just dropped a completely new and amazing Genesis edition of their watch collections. You have the date of the first ever mined Bitcoin block in there, and of course also the block height and which epoch we are currently in. I love the level of detail they put in this masterpiece. Make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. And now if you have Bitcoin, I really do hope that you don't have it on exchange. But if you do have it on exchange, I have 2 ways for you to deal with that. The first way is you put it on a hardware wallet. That's the entry for you to get into the self-custody game. I recommend BitBox, Bitcoin only edition for that. It's a super simple and secure way. And if you check out the link in the description, you even get 5% off if you use the code Robin. And the second way is the Bitcoin Way. The Bitcoin Way is your all-in partner in terms of how to get the most out of your your sovereignty. They will personalize for you a self-custody setup that is perfect for your individual situation. They will show you how you can secure your own devices. Securing your Bitcoin is not enough. You also have to keep all your devices secure. One topic that is overlooked often is the inheritance plan. What happens with your Bitcoin once you are no longer here? Do you have a plan for that in place already? And last but not least, if you're in the jurisdictions where you don't feel safe, it's better to get a plan B. For all that, head over to thebitcoinway.com/Robin to get a 30-minute free call. And just a quick side note, I will be for the first time ever speaking at the Bitcoin Prague event in June. It will be absolutely legendary, and I'm really looking forward to seeing all of you there. You can get your ticket in the link down in the description of Bitcoin Prague, and very important, use code Robin to get 10% off your ticket. I'm really looking forward seeing you there. He doesn't always deliver on time, but he usually delivers things. So him saying things is scary because he has the resources and the abilities to actually pull things off that sound crazy. If anyone else would say that, you're like, yeah, of course, try it. But he might actually pull it off.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the Tesla roofs, I guess, never took off. But otherwise, I think he's done all the other things he said he was going to do.
Yeah, of course, like there are a lot of small failures that he lived through, like every entrepreneur. But overall, especially with SpaceX, it's just fascinating to see that story and how many failures it was in the beginning, how much money they burned, how big of a is it a headwind? How big of a headwind they got? They're very important for space exploration, to say the least.
Yeah, it's wild what's unfolding right now.
Do you think something like that will eventually break the network effect, like Nostr or anything like that? It seems like even Facebook is still around, and I don't. It seems like Facebook is called dead since like 5 years, and it's still the biggest network.
Yeah, so there are a lot of people in the world, especially in the less developed areas, that are interfacing with the internet exclusively through Facebook. So that's part of the reason it still works. It's very useful as a place to do commerce. A lot of the people that I know who have their Facebook accounts, all they do is use the marketplace, which used to be Craigslist. Craigslist is gone. Craigslist was really like, it was kind of sketchy, but it was kind of cool. I loved Craigslist. I don't know if you guys had that in Europe, but yeah, what else do people use Facebook for? They use it to advertise their businesses. That's less popular now. Mostly now that's on Instagram, which is owned by Facebook. So they're staying relevant, but being fed ads, being forced into an algorithm that's manipulating you. Something I've been noticing is that people that spend a lot of time on these centralized social media platforms, they have different behavior patterns than people that don't. I live in a place now where I meet a lot of people that don't have social media. They've chosen to opt out, and they're socially different people. I don't know how to put it. It's similar to when you understand Bitcoin and you interact with somebody that doesn't, and you're like, something's not right here. Like this isn't. We're not on the same page. And I can't quite put my finger on it yet, but it's very early in the process of hyper-nostrization.
I never heard that, the hyper-nostrization.
I don't know who said it first, but it's happening.
I love that, yeah. It's also interesting how algorithms will develop, because TikTok set basically the standard for how Twitter and how the YouTube Shorts and how most algorithms work. Previously, it was a follower list, subscribers. So when you had like 10,000 subscribers and you send out something, most of them saw it. Now, subscribers and followers, like, it doesn't matter at all now. If you have a good piece of content, it will go. You can reach with a 500 follower account 500 million, maybe not 500 million. That's a little bit too much, but like 1 million people. and you could reach with a million subscriber account like 500 people or 1,000 people. There's so many YouTubers account that have 200,000 subscribers that post a video and don't reach 1,000 views, because now the individual content piece is very high in the rating, and how many followers do you have is almost. I'm not subscribed to most YouTube channels that I watch, because YouTube knows I want to watch them. They give it to me on the homepage, and I don't subscribe anymore. So it's always interesting how algorithms evolve and how they get us hooked more and more. And I'm wondering if the same thing might happen with Nostr, because maybe someone comes along, develops an app that makes people addicted. Addictive behavior might lead to more users, and they just like, and then other platforms also adopt that same algorithms. I'm really curious how Nostr will develop.
Yeah, so I am full on addicted to Amethyst, and I love Vitor. And it's a crazy app in some ways. It does a little bit of everything. It's like the Swiss Army knife of Nostr. But yeah, I check it every day. You know, what I really don't like about these algorithms is a lot of people, like millions of people all over the world, have been focused on getting subscribers, right? And then Google behind the scenes, they're like, okay, actually that model isn't working for us anymore. We're going to change the model. Did they make an announcement? Probably not. They just started to tweak things and change things. And all of a sudden, the incentives have shifted for everybody else. And Bitcoiners love to talk about malinvestment and like misaligned incentives when it comes to money, but they're not necessarily always looking at the other ways in which we get manipulated by the news, by the social media websites, by literally everything you interact with. You go to the grocery store, everything in there is designed by psychologists to manipulate you. You know, so it is what it is. Some people do seem to be aware of it, and most of those people are using Nostr.
Well, I'm fascinated by the topic of Nostr, even though I'm not that deep into it. I just hope that we don't lose all the Bitcoiners right now to Nostr, so that some people orange pilling on other platforms.
Yeah, there's always going to be people in the fray that are on TikTok, and talk about a high time preference website. TikTok, first of all, would not exist if Twitter hadn't killed Vine back in the day. I don't know if you ever used Vine, but
I
Vine was better than TikTok.
TikTok.
Yeah, and then TikTok took the whole market, and it's crazy. It's training people's attention span to be shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. It's wild. I picked up the app once. I saw one video, and it triggered an emotional response in me. I don't remember what it was. It was something terrible. It was like somebody being injured, I think. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm out. Like, I'm done. I put the app down. I uninstalled it. But yeah, there will always be people that are making other content. Why? Because there's lots of fiat juice to be squeezed. There's lots of money to be made by people who, are content creators like yourself that go out and get on other platforms. Personally, I've completely, in the same way that I've withdrawn my energy from the fiat system, I've withdrawn my energy from Twitter. I don't engage in arguments with people on Twitter. I don't want to fucking talk to an XRP guy. I don't. Like, that conversation is not interesting to me anymore. It was in 2017 because I didn't know the difference. So I needed to like debate and kind of get my head around it. And on Nostr, we have a bunch of Monero people. I don't debate with them either because it's like, why even engage? They're so salty. They're so sour and salty and desperate. And I would be too if the price action looked like that on Bitcoin. But, I have other things to focus on than trying to orange pill strangers on the internet. I appreciate the people that do it, but I've successfully orange pilled almost every person I know personally, like in my real life, and I'm proud of that. And I'm going to continue to do that for all the people that I care about, with the exception of one person that I'm still working on. And she's got more capital than everybody I know put together, but she just is stubborn. So stubborn. Yeah, but it's okay.
I never looked at a Monero price charts. I'm doing this right now for the
Dude,
first time ever.
Check it against Bitcoin. Yeah.
Is it possible on Google to do that?
You might need to go to TradingView if you put in like
Oh yeah,
BTC.
it's I love that.
Put it on the max chart. Boom. Yeah, dude. I mean, all the shitcoins do that. It's not a surprise. It's just these guys, you know, they want to look at child porn or whatever. Oh, probably edit that out. If you put that in your YouTube, you'll get censored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Oh man.
I'm just messing around. Privacy is important, but not on the main chain, like not on layer one.
It's super interesting to look at those things. Yeah, Monero is. I sometimes the Ripple guys are more annoying. Monero is just a little thing that comes here and there on Twitter and also on YouTube, but it's so rare. It's like one comment a month or something like that.
Right.
And Ripple comes in waves. So right now there's nothing, and then all of a sudden there's like a week where you have almost every second comment is a Ripple comment where I'm like, are they bot farming? How are they organizing that? This is organized. This is not natural.
No, yeah. I don't know how they do it, but they're incredible. And I know I have met people in real life that got caught up in that scam. I mean, like really big time. I was dating a girl. This was at a time that I didn't really like understand Bitcoin that well. But I was already 90% in. And she was 90% in Ripple. And I was like, one of us is wrong. There's no way that we're both right. So I don't know, but she seems to have done okay, I guess, because she held until this most recent 4x, and I think now she gets it, and she's like moving she's moving into Bitcoin somewhat, I guess. We don't talk about her finances too much, but we've stayed in touch over the years.
Interesting. One more thing that I want to touch on, because you mentioned it. I don't know if you already want to talk about it, but you started writing a book. Is there already? Because I know there's writing a book is because I'm trying it myself. It's a very complicated and long process. How far are you already?
Yeah, it's probably 75% of the way through the writing portion of it, but maybe only 40% of the way through the work that's going to be required, because I need to edit and polish and make sure it all flows right, and really sleep on it. But yeah, the general idea is Bitcoin has won, or it is winning. There's always caveats. You can always point to, oh, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? But every time I have a what if, the Bitcoin network eventually solves it for me without me having to worry about it. I was just reading, I think it's the book of Luke yesterday, and Jesus said, "Has worrying ever added a day to your life?" Like, it doesn't. If you're anxious, it doesn't benefit anybody. So anyway, I've had concerns in the past. I'm not going to talk about those in the book. The book is not about understanding Bitcoin. It's not about it's actually a book that's written for Bitcoiners about what we are responsible for after we win, and what we can choose to do with that, and what that looks like from a philosophical standpoint, from an ethical standpoint. That's what I'm writing about. And so I'm not necessarily trying to change anybody's mind, but I'm presenting these arguments and these ways of thinking, specifically around integral theory, which is a philosophical framework, to provide some kind of an idea of what I think the future looks like, but not in a central planning way. Most of these futurists that write books about, even Buckminster Fuller, I'm listening to Critical Path right now, and he's got such a hard on for central planning. It's kind of weird, it's like he thinks he has a solution for everything. I don't have a solution for everything, but there's an underlying framework of how people ought to treat each other. And I talk about, of course, any kind of ought statement is a value proposition that's based on your own assumptions. But if we want a peaceful future, right, So that's a value proposition. I do want a peaceful future. I want a peaceful, abundant future because my values align with that. If you don't want a peaceful, abundant future, you can go fuck yourself. I'm going to build a giant wall, and all those people that believe that, they can stay on the other side of it, right? And that's kind of the whole point is you can't get into this fairy tale land of, oh, everybody's going to get along and everything's going to be taken care of and we don't need money and these things. But you also don't want to go into this like hyper vigilant, everybody's my enemy mindset. Like both sides can be detrimental, you know? So that's kind of the balance I'm trying to strike with the book.
Interesting. Yeah. I love that aspect because there are a lot of books out there that explain why Bitcoin. And we need those books, definitely. I think we need more books. We need more educators in the space because we really just started educating the masses. And I think like 99% of the population didn't understand Bitcoin, even though I think 3% or something like that has exposure to Bitcoin. But I think most Bitcoiners haven't understood Bitcoin. Most Bitcoiners have like €1,000 on Coinbase. If you have €1,000 on Coinbase, you haven't understood Bitcoin. You just have it because someone else told you, or you think it's important to diversify. So everything where we educate other people, if it's no coiners or Bitcoiners or pre-coiners or whatever it is, I think that's valuable. So education is probably outside of developing scaling technology for Bitcoin and developing the infrastructure where everything is running on around Bitcoin. Outside of that, education is probably the most important part of the next few years for Bitcoin.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of interesting. I have this saying: shitcoiners don't read because they won't pick up a book. Myself included. Before I understood Bitcoin, I hadn't read any books about it. That was my main flaw, and that's why I got stuck in the crypto casino for a year or two. But we've kind of reached the critical mass of people who are willing to read books outside of the Bitcoin space. I think at least until we get some more NGU, because that's the billboard that makes people notice that we need to, you need to do research, right? So I don't see any value added in me trying to explain Bitcoin in a different way. It's been explained in so many different ways by so many different people, and many of them are really good, to the point where when I'm talking to somebody, I'm orange pilling somebody, I have specific books in mind that it's like, oh, this person has this political leaning. Okay, let me send them this way. Or, oh, they're this way, or they're a gold bug or whatever. I send them to different books, And at this point, you make more money by trying to reach a fiat audience, for sure. But that's not my intention with this book. Like my intention is to genuinely connect with other Bitcoiners intellectually, so that we can sort of collectively think about and shape what the earth is going to be like over the next 1,000 years or whatever, The ideas that I'm putting in the book are not largely shared in the Bitcoin space because they're about as obscure as Bitcoin is outside of the Bitcoin space. Like this integral theory thing that I'm writing about, I've met a few Bitcoiners that care about integral theory on Nostr. So it's like, okay, you're a Bitcoiner on Nostr that knows about integral theory. That's a very small group of people on this planet, and that's what I'm writing the book about. So to spread those ideas more widely.
Yeah, it's you can make those markers because it's almost, if you are someone that holds Bitcoin on self-custody, runs their own full node, and maybe even mines a little bit, all those checkpoints are already very, very filtering. But then you add on, he also has a Nostr, or then you add on, he maybe is only on Nostr or primarily on Nostr, and then get some theories in there what he knows about. Additionally, on that, you cramp down your niche very, very much.
Right? Yeah, exactly. But I think that as the Bitcoin price continues to appreciate, more and more people are going to be drawn to Nostr. I think that the devs on Nostr are really dedicated, and they're building new tools to do better jobs with zaps and all these things. We had a zap bear market because everybody was afraid of regulation. And so like Wallet of Satoshi pulled out of the US, the Phoenix pulled out of the US. Phoenix just came back because of the recent legislation. So I'm super bullish on zaps. I'm super bullish on Nostr. I think that yeah, it's going to continue to grow as long as we get left alone for long enough. And right now, it's good that it's obscure because we're not ready to be attacked. It's similar to the early Bitcoin days when Satoshi was getting worried about WikiLeaks. It was like, yo, this is getting way too much heat too quick. We're not ready for the apparatus that we're opposing to notice us. We need to be subversive for longer. And that was about when he disappeared, because he was like, I need to get out of here. You know, it was getting dangerous. Luckily, the apparatus either didn't care or didn't. Oh, my computer's going to die on me. All right.
Take your time. Take your time.
Good editor. Okay, cool. So anyway, yeah, with Nostr, we're still vulnerable to attack right now. And we don't have solutions in place to get rid of, for example, a massive bot attack. There was this event where somebody spun up a server and attacked Nostr kind of as a joke with this thing called Reply Guy. And all it did is it would reply to you saying exactly what you said. It was totally non-malicious. It was like just a show of vulnerability. And we struggled to cope with that, you know? So we're not ready for mainstream adoption. And the people that are on Nostr that are like, oh, you know, you guys need to stop talking about Bitcoin because then nobody's going to want to hang out here because you're talking about Bitcoin. It's like, yo, this was built by Bitcoiners. Bitcoin is the only ones that'll put up with this shitty software long enough to care to be here. You guys can talk about whatever you want. We want to talk about Bitcoin. So leave me alone. I came here to be left alone. It's like, don't tell me what to say. Don't tell me what not to say, rabble. Thank you.
Yeah, it's always super fun when other people try to control other people. It never makes sense.
Especially Bitcoiners. Bitcoiners are supposed to be super into freedom and all that, and then they like love telling other people what to do. Don't eat vegetables. Vegetables are poison. Don't eat those.
I'm sometimes really annoyed by that because I think we make the mistake of putting our own values onto Bitcoin and thinking just because I have those values, no matter what this is, let's stick with no vegetables and I'm a carnivore. Let's put that onto Bitcoin. And now everyone that also understands Bitcoin should not eat vegetables and only one steak a day.
Right. I do eat one steak a day for the record, but I also started eating vegetables recently because I realized it's ridiculous. They taste good, you know, like broccoli in the oven. Delicious.
I love vegetables. They're really good. I like that. Right. I also like fruits and nuts and things like that.
Too extreme, man. I don't know. Fruit and nuts. I'm just, you know. Yeah, and there's like a purity test. And I think that a lot of it's on Twitter. I remember how toxic it was on Twitter. And the first time I went to a conference, I was really worried about meeting Bitcoiners. I was really nervous because I'd had so many negative interactions on Twitter with Bitcoiners, even though we fundamentally agree on like 90% of everything. You know what? It might not just be Bitcoiners. It could just be libertarians in general. I saw this meme that said, oh, you're a libertarian now. Welcome to disagreeing with everybody you know, even though you align on 99% of everything else, you know? Libertarians love to argue.
Before I started the podcast, I was on Twitter only. So I had my Twitter account for about a year before I started the podcast. And I started with 0 followers up until like 7 or 8K or something like that. And I was putting daily efforts. So I put out 5, sometimes even 12 tweets out per day that just came in my thoughts, and I try to come up with things. It was really hard with so much output. So naturally, I really got into the Bitcoin sphere on Twitter, and I was really I got sucked into that a lot. I got sucked into the most toxic maxi mindset ever. And then the podcast actually softened me a lot. I got softened a lot on altcoins. Previously, I said it's pure evil, and I don't want to touch it. Now I say I don't want to touch it. If you do, you do you. It's your money. I don't say that. I don't think you're making a good decision when you go into altcoins, but you live your life. Like, you do you. I will recommend to you Bitcoin only, and I can give you all the sources and things why I'm thinking that way. But you do you. I attacked altcoiners and shitcoiners every single day. I stopped doing that with the podcast because I saw it doesn't matter. And
Yeah.
in that way, the podcast made me a little bit more realistic around what's going on in Bitcoin, and talking with people makes a difference. And the same way, you don't have to start a podcast for that. You just can go to a conference or a meetup, and you will realize people are actually kind of nice.
Yeah, right. Most of the time, it's when they're not behind a computer screen, and there's people that just stay at home and never go outside. Of course, they're upset. That's going to come out in the. And also, Twitter has a way of propping up tweets and engagement that is more adversarial and combative. So I think the algorithm on Twitter has a lot to do with it. But yeah, I got really toxic about shitcoiners. I still can be, frankly. Every once in a while, meet somebody in person. And I've realized it's not about the shitcoining. I don't care what people do with their money. It's when they come at me with arrogance, like they know more than I do, or or they think that whatever. That's what really gets under my skin. And I'm working on that. It's a spiritual journey, like being around arrogant people without getting triggered is my own shadow work to deal with. But I did create on the lecture series that I put out, the Holotropic Renaissance. There's an episode now, I think I created it since I last spoke to you, that is a recording. It's about an hour long, and it's my explanation of exactly why I don't invest in crypto. And now when I get into a discussion with somebody online, I don't engage. I just send them the link. It's like, and it says in the beginning of the recording, it says, I created this because I don't want to have this discussion anymore. I've had it hundreds of times. And if you're interested, you can listen to this, but it's totally voluntary. It's up to you. There's valuable information in there. I talk about the Byzantine generals problem and like why Bitcoin's network effect is going to crush everything else. I just got a new piece from Sam Hyde, which was he was talking about the Schelling point, which is really good. I might actually go back and add that. The Schelling point is like people's innate convergence on one solution, which just happens in every part of life. And that's what's going to happen with Bitcoin too. So that resource is out there. I know other people that are sharing it with shitcoiners. It's very gentle. It's like not toxic as best I could do,
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I think last time I actually did not ask you that. We have now a new question that I ask each and every single guest, and maybe I've asked you. I'm not remembering. What can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
Right. So the Holotropic Renaissance lecture series is a collection of everything I've learned in my life that was critically important to me. And so I put that out. It talks about spirituality, psychology, psychedelics, philosophy, and Bitcoin and crypto, and the difference between the two. And I created it as a passion project for myself, but I also really created it for the Bitcoin community because I know there's a large curiosity around psychedelics. And I know that there's a lot of really reckless and irresponsible use of psychedelics in society at large. And if I had known the things that I shared in that podcast early on, I would have saved myself a lot of time. I also believe that if Bitcoiners, especially Bitcoiners that have a large holding, understand more about psychedelics, it would probably benefit them and the rest of humanity because of the insights that are commonly associated with psychedelics. You don't necessarily even have to take psychedelics. You can do breath work. You can meditate. It's not an essential thing, and I'm not out here telling people, oh, you should do psychedelics or even recommending it. But it's been incredibly beneficial for me to understand the context in which I live, right? The meaning of life and all these huge questions, which inevitably, if you stack Bitcoin hard enough, you're going to have some time on your hands to think, and you're going to want to consider these questions. At least that was my disposition. So that was a big part of it for me. Is like I really wanted to get my thoughts ironed out and then share them. So genuinely, that's what other people can learn from me besides Bitcoin.
Yeah, the harder you stack and the longer you do, the more freedom you get.
Right. Yeah. And then the question became, what do I actually want to be doing with my life on this planet? And I realized, well, the guys that I look up to, the coolest guys I know are Alan Watts, Ram Dass, Eckhart Tolle. And I've had the privilege of, studying those people and learning from them. And now I see that they didn't have everything perfect. Like Ken Wilber, all these guys. I mean, Alan Watts is a brilliant man, but he drank himself to death, and he had really tumultuous relationships in his life. And so there's work to be done there that can integrate what they shared and improve to transcend and include, as Ken Wilber would put it, what was developed before.
That's super interesting, especially when you think about what's after it. We stack in Bitcoin. We are early, as you said. Maybe what's going on in your book. What are we doing with that? How do we deal if Bitcoiners are the elite of the world all of a sudden, and not fiat central bankers?
Yeah, I write about the lottery problem, which is, let's imagine that overnight Bitcoin goes to $20 million for some reason. The game theory just happens all at once. Most Bitcoiners are not ready for that reality. If we were, it would happen. That would be a spiritual, philosophical statement. But if we were ready for that, it would be occurring right now. But lottery winners often end up in a worse position 5 years after they win the lottery. And the reason that is because money doesn't solve all your problems. In fact, it doesn't really solve any of the important problems. So when Bitcoiners say, fix the money, fix the world, it's a really good meme, but every human being knows that money doesn't buy anything that's actually important. It doesn't buy your relationship with your parents or your spouse or your kids. It doesn't buy your connection to a higher power. It doesn't fix the environment that you live in necessarily. That takes time and learning, and it's a relationship, right? It's a relationship with your surroundings and your context, and with yourself also. And these things are way more important than money. Money is just a means to that end, in my opinion. And a lot of Bitcoiners seem to be worshiping Bitcoin, making jokes about, the Bitcoin standard being their Bible and about Satoshi being like Jesus. And that's great. I mean, it's a good meme. It's funny, but I would caution people not to worship money. That's it's all over the Bible. Don't do that. So, this is the way that I tend to think about it.
It's a tool in the end of the day. That's very true. Yeah. We have an endogene, as you know, where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And the previous guest asked you the question, which US tech billionaire will be the first one to adopt Bitcoin in a meaningful way? Michael Saylor, I guess, doesn't count.
Okay. Geez, tech billionaire. So the only two names that are coming to mind are Bezos and Musk.
Yeah, and Zuckerberg is also right. Yeah.
That's a toss-up, man. Any one of them, they all have Bitcoin, right? they're not talking about it publicly. Why would they? Elon has Bitcoin on the balance sheet at Tesla, so he already has adopted to some degree. I personally wonder if he wouldn't be buying more if it wasn't for his board, right, and the shareholders. But it's not clear to me. Zuckerberg has gone through a big transition over the last 2 years. He's been doing jujitsu. I think he's probably been doing ayahuasca. He's changed from like a robotic person into like somebody I would actually hang out with, which is shocking, you know? I would love to see him adopt Bitcoin. I think that would be super bullish. That would be my preference, I would say. I would like to see, oh gosh, I would love to see Bezos adopt it too, because I want to be able to spend sats on Amazon. So yeah, I don't really have an answer as far as a prediction goes. Any of them seems equally likely, and it would surprise me to not see them adopt it over the next 2 years. All three of those guys I mentioned.
Absolutely. Zuckerberg is I think also the one that has a goat called Bitcoin. Do you
Satoshi,
remember that?
Right? Yeah.
I think in 2021 he posted on Facebook a picture with 2 goats, and he said, "Here are my 2 goats, max and Bitcoin."
Right. Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of sleeper cells out there, and it could be that these people are not in a position where they want to talk about it publicly for a lot of reasons, and it's not really in their it's not in their advantage to talk about it publicly. They're just going to keep stacking sats. So let's see.
Yeah, there's no way any of those. I mean, with Elon, we know, like he said publicly, that he owns privately also Bitcoin outside of the Tesla holdings. Bezos, there's no question he has like he has Bitcoin. Like there's just no question around it. We know one thing that I don't know if he's a billionaire, actually. Tim Cook also publicly said that he has Bitcoin in an interview where he was asked if he holds crypto. And he said, yes, I have crypto. He said he has Bitcoin, Ethereum, and I think 1 or 2 other ones he mentioned.
Right.
And Zuckerberg calls his goat Bitcoin. He definitely also has some.
Yeah, so, I would imagine that Bezos and Zuckerberg self-custody and that Tim Cook does not. That would be my guess.
That's an interesting question. They all have Bitcoin. Who does self-custody? Who runs a node? Does any one of them run a node?
Who's running a whole node?
Before I let you go, where can people find you and ask you questions and reach out to you?
Yeah, so I've got a landing page. It's sourcenode.xyz. And you can find me on Nostr if you search Sourcenode. That's it. Those are the only 2 places you can find me.
I love that. I just
keep it simple.
I love the website. I will just quickly show it because I love how it looks.
Oh, thanks.
It's like the exit button here. So for the people that just listen, it's basically a website with the matrix, like in the movie, the numbers and the characters running down, and then an exit button, and where you then can exit to Sourcenode.
Nice.
That. Yeah, really cool. Thank you so much, Sourcenode, for being on and for being part of the podcast. Thank you so much for your time, and also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye bye.